Hallelujah. Are we good, Miss Lorraine? He gonna lead the whole thing. You ready? Right here. Hey, good afternoon. We could have your attention. We're getting ready to start this program. Such a wonderful crowd. I'm glad everybody is able to stay. And for those who are just came, also welcome. We are going to start our program in a great tribute to really a great man. A man that most of us have known and familiar with, Mr. Gregory B. Wilson. This is going to be both a verbal tribute, but also a photographic tribute to Mr. Wilson, because after this program is over, then we're going to go next door to the auxiliary sanctuary, where there's going to be a full display of many of Gregory Wilson's works as a community and professional photographer. And we're going to explain why that's important too, as well as Gregory Wilson being the good man that he was as well. I'm going just, if you have a program in your hand, we're going to follow the program pretty much as close as possible. And we're going to start off with the welcome and the opening prayer by our Reverend Sims. I'm going to come back and I'll go over just a brief history about Gregory Wilson's works. And then we're going to be blessed with the song, My Soul is an Anchor in the Lord. Then we're going to have special remarks by people who were close to him, Mr. Wilson. Brian Pierce, Councilman Felix Gines, Clement P. Jemison Sr., Mr. James Crowell, Dr. Gilbert R. Mason Jr., and Miss Lorraine Wilson. And then we will close out with the closing prayer from Reverend Sims. Amen. Are we all in accordance? Amen. Big deal. All right. So let's go ahead and we start the program out with the opening prayer and remarks by Reverend Cordell Sims.
We are grateful to be here in honor of such a, not only a great man, but a great member. Mr. Greg we started a noon Bible study, and he would be here every week on his lunch break. That was commitment, and that was leadership, and that was faithfulness, all of which contributes to Mr. Greg Wilson. So we welcome you here to St. Paul United Methodist Church, his church, where he was faithful to the ministry that God put before him. So we welcome you and we thank God for you being here today.
Thank you, Pastor Sims, Reverend Sims. As we go into the history of this man, Gregory B. Wilson, he was a highly respected healthcare employee, advocate, and beloved husband, father, son, brother, and friend. But also another dimension of Brother Wilson, that he was a dynamic professional and community photographer who for decades used his camera lens to capture many golden moments and memories of Black life in South Mississippi, which also made him a very important pictorial historian. And so, like I said before, this is a tribute and an exhibit of his works to represent a synopsis of his work. In the back of the program, you do have the obituary of Brother Wilson, who did pass away about 2 years ago this week. And you can see the background of him being totally Mississippi bred, a graduate of Clarksdale High School, furthered his education at Jackson State University, majoring in mass communications. And then as a young boy, he accepted Christ and was an active member of Haven United Methodist Church. And then before coming to St. Paul United Methodist Church here in Biloxi. And as Reverend Sims indicated, he did a little bit of everything. He was a choir member, health and wellness ministry, couples and marriage and single ministry, a member of the United Methodist Men organization. He possessed a love of music, the performing arts, and was a dynamic singer, and as we know, a photographer. He was a highly respected employee at the manager for the Coastal Family Health Centers in Mississippi, and he was on the board of several organizations: Mercy Housing, East Biloxi Community Collaborative, Invest Health Initiative, Biloxi High School Leadership Program, and others. The other thing that I just want to touch on about Greg Wilson and his professional work. Before I came to Mississippi myself, I had the privilege of being a editor and reporter of several black newspapers around the country, and an industry that is also known as the black press. And while we worked on writing and reporting about stories that projected unapologetically a perspective of black life wherever we went, always an important component of those newspapers and publications and media outlets was the photographer, was the lead photographer. Because that photographer was able to get snapshots, pictures, images, and thoughts of not only just the famous people, not only just the celebrities or the prominent people in the community, but of everyday people in the community. They helped with the black press to emphasize and proclaim that black lives did matter, that everyday black lives matter. You know, and whether you went to church, whether you went to school, whether you worked, whatever type of position that you take or whatever role that you took in the community, you needed to get a snapshot or a pictorial view of that and of how the black community carried itself every day of every week. And that was important. That's just as important as seeing everyday people in any other community. And among the black press, they were the only component exhibiting black life when other people in the community was trying to ignore it and deem it invisible. So the black photographer in the black press were just as much as heroes in the community as the black editor, producers, reporters, and broadcasters and things. And so I think we could align Greg Wilson among those type of heroes. Over the years of the black press, there was famous black photographers like James Van Der Zee, who was very prominent during the Harlem Renaissance. Now, of course, you might have heard of Gordon Parks, who for decades was a famous photographer. Just not just famous people, but exhibiting an everyday black life. There was Moneta Sleep Jr., who was popular as a photographer for Ebony magazine. There was an R.C. Hickman in Dallas, Texas. There was a Ernest Withers in Memphis. P.H. Polk in Alabama. There was a Charles Teeney Harris with the Pittsburgh Courier. There was a Bobby Sinstack with the Chicago Defender. There was Calvin Littlejohn with Fort Worth, and there were others. So one thing I felt the need to do is to let you know about that slice of history, and to let you know that Mr. Greg Wilson, through his photography work, is aligned with those great black community, black press photographers. And I don't know, if there is a Black Photographers Hall of Fame, I don't think there is one. I think it would be worthy for us to nominate him into the Black Photographers Hall of Fame. Because his work, he did it out of joy and fun, but his work was also that important. And we need to know that, and our younger generation needs to know that as we move on into the next generation, how we need to preserve our lives and preserve the legacy of how we live and things, so that everybody knows that our lives matter just as much as everybody's lives matter. And I just wanted to give a little bit of that historical perspective along with the personal historical aspects of Greg Wilson's life. And so just wanted to point that out, and to when you remember Greg Wilson, please remember him along those lines as that pictorial historian who made sure that our everyday life was in the limelight, is at the top of everybody's conscience, and is into the center eye. So I appreciate you allowing me to give you that historical perspective as well as the historical perspective of Mr. Greg Wilson. And you'll get an idea of that when this program is over and you get to go over to the auxiliary sanctuary and see the Victoria exhibit that we have assembled. And so the next step in our agenda, before we go to special remarks, we're going to hear from Pastor Dean. We're going to hear a performance of the song, "My Soul is an Anchor in the Lord."
Sometimes it's hard to tell the night from day. Still, that hope that lies within is reassured as I keep my eyes upon the distant shore. Keeps on blowing.
Thank you so much for that musical tribute. Like I said, singing, musician, part of the arts, photography is part of the arts, and we can see how important arts is in the expression for us in our community. Next we will go and we will bring in people with special remarks about Mr. Gregory Wilson, their experiences with him, what they felt about him, and why they felt that it's very important to recognize him today and things. And the first person we're going to bring up is a person who also has the same vocation as Mr. Wilson. He is also a professional photographer, and he also is doing an outstanding job of helping chronicle Black life in South Mississippi and things. And so if you will help me in welcoming, bringing up photographer Brian Pierce.
Good afternoon. Oh, wasn't that a wonderful rendition of that song Master D gave us? How many of you have our soul anchored in the Lord? All right. From my understanding, that was one of Greg's favorite songs. Yes, I'm a photographer, and if you never know, some photographers are a peculiar group of people sometimes, especially when we see each other at an event. We have to go around and check out each other's equipment and see what this person is about. You know, it's sort of a dance that we go through. We're gonna have to go look at their camera and see how serious they are about photography by their camera. And then we might start a conversation. And sometime in the conversation, you have to determine whether or not this is a friend or a foe. See, some photographers are not too friendly when it comes to sharing information. They don't fellowship with one another. They view each other as just strictly as competition, and they don't share. That encounter did not happen when I met Greg. We probably was at an event somewhere, and after we checked each other out, we started talking, and Greg was just so open and so friendly. And being that I was sort of new to the scene, a new photographer, he just embraced me. And he welcomed me and said, anytime, you want to get together and do something, let's do that. And you don't find that too often with a lot of photographers. Some of them are just so close, and they view you as competition, and they won't share. But Greg was not that way. He was a good man. We didn't get together that often, but when we did, we could just sit down and talk about cameras, talk about pictures. What are you doing? What are you shooting? What's going on in your life? And another thing that we also as photographers will do is eventually we're going to go check out each other's work. We got to see if do they have some skill. And Greg has skill. When you go look at his pictures, a good photograph should tell a story, evoke an emotion, and be well put together. And when you look at his work, you will see that he was a good photographer. He was able to tell a story. He was able to evoke an emotion from you. And he was able to put the picture together in a good way. So not only was he a good man, he was a good photographer also. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierce. Our next person who's going to come up and make remarks is our city council person for Ward 2. And obviously he had many interactions with Mr. Wilson. And is Brother Felix Guys here? Okay, I don't see Brother Felix Guys. Is there anybody here to represent Brother Guys in any way? No, okay. Well, okay. we'll just go ahead and move on to the next speaker and things. And also, of course, knew Greg not only as a member here at St. Paul and through the work in the community, but also as a fellow appreciative of the arts. This person first made his mark as being a participant in the Wade-In back in one of the Wade-Ins in 1960. One of our crowning civil rights achievement, and he went on to do some special things as a music teacher and as a professional musician himself. And as you see him right now behind the set of drums, and he's going to give some remarks about Brother Greg Wilson. So would you please welcome Clement P. Jemison Sr.
Good evening. First, giving honor to God, who's the head of my life, and He allowed me to entangle and embrace all these different talents that He's given me, and it's got me on this journey, a mission to fulfill His goal, not mine. My heart is filled anytime I'm talking about Greg Wilson. Through the grace of God, in divine intervention, he puts you in the midst of people in your life that touches you. And Greg and I didn't realize that he actually came to Biloxi. According to Lorraine, he was working at a place over in Deontay. I don't know if that's where, I guess where I first connected with him was probably here at St. Paul, United Methodist Church. And the other place that I remember was Radio Shack in the Edgewater Mall. So, and from that, we had a connection. Like Mr. Bryan was talking a few minutes ago, and a lot of you don't realize that I was an entrepreneur in photography. I entered when I was about 17 years old. Went and bought one of the Polaroid cameras, and I was turned professional as a drummer at 14. My classmates didn't know I was out there gigging. So what would happen was when I wasn't on the music circuit, then I would take that Polaroid camera and go to the clubs, and that was $5 a shot, at 4x6. Okay, so I did that not only in Biloxi, but when I got my scholarship at Jackson State in music, when I was on the music circuit there, so I wasn't doing anything, I would do the same thing. But anyway, and going back to my dear buddy, Greg Wilson, and actually, my wife is deceased. She passed away 3 years ago. And Greg 2 years ago, of course. But she would always say, you know, once we kind of adopted Greg and Lorraine as our adopted children, not legally. Like Brian would say, Greg was my wife would say he was an introvert, and she and Greg was an introvert, and Lorraine and I was extroverts. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, she would also say that Greg had a gift of discernment. And a lot of ministers that was at St. Paul here credit her with that gift as well. And what happened is Greg and I connected not only in the community, but we connected here at St. Paul when I was chairman of the trustee board here. Then we worked to rehab the orphanage that the pastor and Mrs. Diaz enjoying. We also embarked on a project together with the Family Life Center. He also was, when I actually reactivated the charter for 419 Boy Scout Troop, and I was the coordinator. Greg was a key supporter in that, and doing his part to facilitate that unit of the Boy Scouts. So what happens is Greg and I, he had a fascination for cameras, and when he got into the business of photography, then he kind of encouraged me to actually, I went from the Polaroid camera to the video camera. So he kind of encouraged me to go into my own video photography to enhance and give people a cheap way of having their weddings or whatever the occasion was. And so I'm just gonna point out, I know we have a certain amount of time. I'm gonna identify 3 important weddings that we did together. And I actually did it for free. I think Greg might have donated his. But anyway, with Dr. Reverend Philip Howard and Cheryl McIntyre, we did that wedding together. I did the videography, he did the photography. We did also Reverend Elijah McGee, that was married to the Biloxi girl Sheila Woods. Did her wedding for free, and also it was Philip Howard, and then we also, how many people remember Soul Preacher? Arthur Lewis Jr. We also did his daughter's wedding for free. Hold on, I said. That give you a little bit, but Greg was had a keen eye, and he was intense. He was a deep thinker. Whenever he ran into some type of problem or having some type of difficulty, then he would always, it's a secret though, right? He'd always connect with Alma. They were like soulmates, okay? But anyway, we ended up doing those different jobs, and then we also, the other highlight job I want to highlight is, I don't know if anybody know E.J. Roberts has his own insurance agency up in Gulfport. His daughter was coming out, you know how the original Illinois Social Club was, his daughter was coming out and she was going to be honoring her. So Greg and I was enlisted to go out. I did videography, he did photography. We was enlisted to go over and do that job at the New Orleans Civic Center in New Orleans. So that gives you a little background, some things you might not have known. But the other thing I want to mention, we had a member in this church, his name was Mr. Leo Russell. And you know how God takes you and he puts you in certain places, you know, that man can't overrule. Mr. Leo Russell was a member of this church, a dedicated member, and he also worked at the post office. I don't know if they call them porters or what with the federal government. He worked there, and what happened is, when they had the trial for the weigh-in, they had the Second Judicial District Federal Court on top of the post office here on Main Street. And during that time, I was actually subpoenaed to come back and testify in that from Jackson State. But what happened, they had the photo exhibits, and what they did was when that trial ended, they threw them in the trash can. Now, you see how my God is? My God is powerful. Guess what Mr. Russell did? He took them and kept them. And not anytime you see any photos, exhibit with the weighed in, what happened, he had them, and I convinced Mr. Russell to let us have them, and then Greg was the person that refurbished those and rehabbed them. So his work goes, it's just exceedingly what he does. He was very compassionate, and he would almost give his work away. I guess Greg might beat him up every night, I'm not sure. But anyway, he was just that type person. And I know you have some other folks that's coming up, so I'm not gonna prolong this, but that gives you a little history.
Thanks so much, Brother Jemison, and if his last remarks you heard, I mean, the photos were thrown into the trash can and probably never to be seen again. And but somebody preserved those photos, and it was Brother Wilson who refurbished those photos so that those memories last. So in that matter too, you'll be considered Greg Wilson a hero as well. And that is important because if you're familiar with the climate that we're in today, there are certain elements of the community that are trying to render us invisible in many different ways. And so we need to fight that and counter that constantly and never let that, and we need to carry our own narrative, control our own narrative about our stories. And photography is one of the most important ways of doing that. Our next person that's going to speak about Brother Wilson, he's also had some very memorable experiences with Brother Wilson. He's going to talk about that. He is the president of the Biloxi branch of the NAACP. And would you welcome, please, Mr. James Crow.
Okay, I'm triple, so I'm not gonna move up to the front.
Hit the button.
I'm gonna stay right here.
Hit the button on the side.
Yeah, you got it. I thought the Lord had worked one miracle to bring us down. Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is James Kroll. I'm president of the Biloxi branch, NAACP, and I'm a part of this family. I've known Lorraine and my sister's parents when he worked down at that ice plant down there, when he was down there, and I knew his mother. But they have been very supportive in NAACP. They both were Mother of the Year for the NAACP. And Lorraine and Greg went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with us to the national convention. And her sister went to Atlanta. Her and her husband went to Atlanta with us. When we went to Pittsburgh, we wasn't staying in the best hotel. But I said, oh Lord, they gonna be mad because we staying in this hotel here. I didn't know where we were staying because I'd never been to Pittsburgh before. But we got to the hotel, they enjoyed themselves. They were out there swimming and having a good time. And their two kids they had, the boy and the girl, were very active with the NAACP when they were young. So when I saw Greg, I was like, how your son doing? Because he was tough when he was always into something. He kept talking. I said, how your son doing? He's doing fine. You know, the sister, she was quiet. Like she wasn't as active as he was, but I'm doing fine. And so when he passed here at the church, that really touched me. And we had our Freedom Fund dinner. I said, one person we got to give an award to this time is Greg. Because Greg was a community-minded person. He worked for the Coastal Family Health. He took pictures anytime we asked him. He was involved with the East Biloxi Community Collaborative. And anytime we asked him to help, he helped. And they were very supportive. And when Dr. Mason called me and told me they were having this program today, would I speak? I said, sure. Because that's my family. I got to come. Now, I'm not going to talk too long. I got this president from Gulfport, Mississippi named, what's your name? Frederick, he told me not to talk for 2 minutes, so I'm not gonna talk for 2 minutes. But I certainly, what you've heard today is really is the truth about Greg. He grew up in the Delta, up in the Clarksdale area up that way, Coahoma County. And you all know about the Delta and what kind of area it is, but even with growing up in the Delta, he turned out to be one of the most beautiful young men. And he had a beautiful family. And I want to say he took beautiful pictures too, as everybody has said. And I certainly enjoyed being friends with him and his family. So y'all be good and God bless you and take care.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crow. The next speaker